Hey everybody. Um, it's nice to see you all over here in the chat. I am Romi Hill and I'm the designer behind Designs by Romi. And I go live. I haven't been going live very often lately because things have been crazy. But I am here today and it's lovely to see you joining me in the chat. It's so nice to see all your names and where you're from. So today I am going to talk about a couple of new patterns I have. And so one of them I don't actually have with me because I loaned it to the dyer who has a bunch of people who are modeling it. So it's Terry Haynes of at Haynes House Yarns. And so she's like, they're wearing it and kind of getting acquainted with radical acceptance. So she's the dyer who did those gorgeous, super saturated colors. And so this is what it looks like. It's Fauxchet. So it's that little technique I did, kind of came up with to do knitted granny clusters. And my other one is the latest Lace Club pattern. This is Promises to Keep. And I am going to be going over part of this too. So I'm not going to be able to go through all of both of them today, but I will definitely go through the patterns and kind of call things out if I need to. And so I I have a little bit of a delay here, so that means I'm coming to you a few seconds or sometimes up to minutes late. And then when you ask me a question or say something in the chat, it takes a little bit of time to get to me and then a little bit of time to reply. But I am watching the chat. So if you have a question or anything like that, let me know. And yeah, so let's see if anyone has any questions. Oh, I'm so glad you like it, you guys. I'm so glad you like the club pattern. That is fantastic. Yay. So I did put out a couple of little videos on the starts to those both of those shawls, and hopefully those were helpful. But I'm going to show you again like how this starts out, and I'm just going to do like a super quick, going to really quickly show you what I mean by fauché. If you haven't seen it before, I do have some swatches where I was trying stuff out. So let me go to my hands here. So this is kind of I started out looser at the bottom here, and then I did a lot of playing with this. So this is what I end up with. And you can see here, it does actually, it looks like crochet. I am a crocheter and it even looks like crochet to me. Like I would have to look at it really carefully to tell that it's not crocheted. Probably over here on the side where that's definitely garter stitch. So anyway, the radical acceptance shawl is using this technique, and it starts out in the center triangle and then goes to, there are a couple of insets with the fauché in there too. So I have to warn you, if you are a crocheter, this is not as fast as crochet. So you're going to find this really is not as fast as crochet. But it integrates really, really well with knitting because there is a definite correlation in stitch counts in there. So it does integrate really well. And for those of you who hate to crochet, this is a really good option. It also is thinner. So you know how crochet can be kind of thick, it can give you a really thick fabric. This gives you a much lighter weight fabric. So I'm going to show that. And then this is what it looks like here. So you can see kind of up close, the middle triangle here starts with fauché, and then there are two other pieces of it. So this is asymmetric. It's a little bit like my High Sierra shawl, where there are stripes in the middle, and then there's this little asymmetric area in here. So actually, here is here's what it kind of looks like. It's based on a modern hat construction. So your cast on starts at the bottom here, and then it's worked up to the top, and you bind off across the top. And then around the sides, you're going to be picking up stitches. This one is a little bit different in the picking up stitches because as you would do in crochet, you're going to be, whenever you pick up stitches, you're going to be doing it basically in holes that are there. So in knitting, we tend to pick up stitches differently. So this uses a little bit of a different approach to it. So let me see if there are any other questions. So Marianne, you asked when the Lace Lovers will start for this year. I am not having the Lace Lovers Club this year. So let me come back to that. So I decided because things are unknown to me, like I can't tell what the prices are going to do with things this year. So shipping and possible tariffs and stuff like that are going to affect prices. So I did not I'm not going to guess. So throughout the year, probably more towards the end of the year, I will put out a couple of different boxes. And so, like, basically, if you would like to order it ahead of time, you can sign up for it, and then I will have a dire diet, and you can see what it is that you're getting. So that is what I decided to do, but that won't be until later in the year. And let me see if any other questions. Um, Sue, you should do everything all together. Isn't that more fun? Spin and knit. Okay, so I'm just going to show you, if you take a look at this, you can see down here, that little triangle right there. That's what I'm going to show you how to start that. So let's transition back over here. And in the pattern, I do have pictures in here, but I think I think a lot of people feel like video is easier to figure out. So we're gonna sort of do this, and as I'm doing it, you can just ask me any questions you might have had when you looked at this before, and maybe you thought, oh, I don't know how to do that. I just like, what's the point? I mean, I have actually had people say, what's the point? So the point is, um, I didn't want to put down my knitting needles and pick up a crochet hook. So, and somebody said you couldn't make knitting look like crochet. So I decided that I was going to disprove them. Okay, so here we go. It starts out with a little pinhole cast on. So I'm just going to do this both ways. I start a lot of shawls like this. So this is the start. If you're a continental knitter like I am, you're going to have this little loop here. This is the yarn that's leading to the skein, and then here's my little tail on this side. I'm going to keep a longer tail so I'll be able to weave those ends in over there. So I'm just going to tension with both fingers like this, reach through the loop, and then knit one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, and knit one. So that is what the cast on looks like if you are a continental knitter. So let me show you the easier way if you have a difficulty tensioning the yarn. So I'm just going to put a slip knot on my needle and then one backwards loop cast on to my needle like that. So the slip knot, all that's doing is just anchoring that loop on the needle. Now I'm going to turn around and I am going to cast on into my loop here. Okay, so I'm going to do this very badly because I'm terrible at English knitting. I'm going to knit one. And then when you do an English style yarn over, it's pretty much like they call it yarn front, which really makes sense to me because you bring your yarn in front and then you work the next stitch. So it automatically just goes right over your needle. So let me see if I can actually back off a little bit from this. I think that's better. Okay. And same thing, we're just going to cast on 5 stitches. And there are 5 stitches. Now I'm going to pull the loop off of my needle and I can take my my anchor stitch out now. So I can take that little slip knot out. That was just to anchor things. And now I have my 5 stitches. So I'm going to mark that. I'm not sure if I put that in my video. Sometimes I think I may have left it out, but you want to mark that just so you can figure out where that first little bit was. Okay, so except I, of course, got it right through the middle of my yarn. So let me move this and get it in the right place. There we go. Hi, Terry. It's lovely to see you. And it's lovely to see everybody else too, of course. Lovely to see you all. Okay, so here we are. This is, that's the cast on, and now we're going to do the setup row. So on the setup row, I'm going to knit all of my stitches through the back loop. And that just kind of closes them up and makes them tidier. So now I am ready to kind of start on my Fauxchet. And I'm going to start with row 1. So I'm going to knit 1 through the back loop, yarn over, and then knit to 1 stitch before the end. So here's a little yarn over, 3 stitches, then I'm going to yarn over again and knit 1 through the back loop. So that is my beginning. I'm going to turn over and I'm going to knit 1 through the back loop. So now I come to this yarn over. I'm not going to work the yarn over. I'm going to slip it with my yarn and back. So I'm just carrying my yarn behind here and I'm going to slip it purlwise with my yarn and back and then knit 3 stitches. And same on the other end. I'm just going to slip my yarn over with yarn and back and knit 1 through the back loop. So this is after row 2. So yes, exactly. Sue is like, challenge accepted. Yep, exactly. It's like, oh yes, I can make it look like crochet. Okay, and then on to row 3. And now I'm going to slip with my yarn in front. So here's my yarn over here, and I just slip with yarn in front. And now my yarn's going to the back side again, and I'm going to knit across. And yarn to the front, slip the yarn over with yarn in front, yarn to back, and knit 1 through the back loop. So far, this really doesn't look like anything. I totally get that. Okay, and now we're going to get to the part that makes it look like crochet. So this is row 4 in the pattern, and this is on the wrong side. So I'm going to knit one through the back loop. So now I have this yarn over here, and then I have those other two strands. And the only reason I put the yarn over there is to help me figure out where my strands are. So otherwise it can be kind of difficult to figure this out. So I'm going to just kind of take a look at this. I want to get under the three strands of yarn that are in between that edge stitch and the next knit stitch here. So that's why I'm using my yarn over to help. And now I'm going to knit one. So for me, it's incredibly helpful to put my left needle all the way through those, under those three strands after I knit. So it makes it much easier to purl. And now I'm going to take my yarn to the back again, and I'm going to purl. Okay, so this is what it looks like so far. You can see now it looks like I didn't get my knit stitch under the three strands. So let me do that again. So you can see where everything's going. They're all going to go in that one hole right there. So that's what it looks like. It should look like there's a hole. So now I want to bind off these three center stitches here. So I'm going to knit two and then bind off one. And then I'm going to knit another stitch and bind off one. And now to bind off this last stitch from the center three, I need a stitch underneath the three strands over here, the yarn over in the other two strands. So I'm going to come over to the side and take a look here, stick my needle underneath the yarn over and underneath those two strands there. So I want it to look like there's a hole. And now I can take my yarn over off my needle. So you can see there's a definite hole there. And now I am going to bind that off. So here is both the last stitch bound off from the three center and then the first stitch underneath those three strands. And again, I'm going to use my left needle to help me here. Purl and then yarn to back. And I'm going to knit a stitch. And now I am going to knit one through the back loop. So this is what it looks like. So you can see already we have this little center part here that looks like a little granny cluster. And here is the right side. So that's our first little granny cluster. So yeah, Sue said that was a KPK under, yes, knit, purl, knit. Yep, yep, yep. Okay, so now I'm going to come to the part that's repeated, and I'm just going to kind of whip through that so I can talk a little bit about how to pick up stitches at the end of this. So basically the same thing is going to happen. I'm going to yarn over and then I'm going to knit to the end. So now in the middle here, you can see there are those three stitches that were bound off, and I'm just going to knit right across the top of them. I am not going to put anything in here, no yarn over, no nothing. So that's part of what makes it look like crochet is getting these things kind of closer together. And I'm going to do a yarn over and a knit one through the back loop. So now on the sides, you always want to do that yarn over because it's really hard to find those three strands if you don't. But if you find that things are too loose, you can always go in there and slip the first stitch of any of the rows and see if that helps kind of tighten things up. So I'm just, once again, I have slipped my yarn overs and going along here. The other thing to remember is when you pick up stitches, A lot of this will be covered up because you're going to be picking up stitches into the holes. So these were the first couple of rows that are repeated. Okay, so if you get kind of lost and you're like, I don't remember what row I'm on, you can take a look in here and see how many strands are above this little hole. See where that, this is what was bound off before. So that creates a little tiny hole above the last granny cluster. And then you can take a look up here and there's 1, 2, 3. So you're going to have, always want to have those 3 strands there. And since I can see them, I know even without having marked it that this is a bind off row. So let's see. Just checking over here to make sure I'm getting everybody's messages. Let me see. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Looks good. If you have any questions or anything, let me know. Alrighty. So now I'm on row 8. So we're basically going to do the same thing as we did before. So I have my yarn over here marking the area, and I'm just going to kind of pop that off because you can really see pretty clearly where those 3 strands are. So I'm going to knit under there. And then again, to help myself, I'm going to put my left needle under those 3 strands to purl. And then one more, I'm going to knit. So it's always that knit, purl, knit into that side. And that's what we're using to shape it. Okay, so in the middle, we're going to bind off. Okay, so you're knitting 2 stitches, binding off, knitting 1 stitch, and then binding off 1. That brings us to the bars of yarn right here, right above the bind off from before. So the number 1 mistake that I saw in the class that I taught at Vogue in New York was people going another stitch here. So by the time you get to the strands, you're only going to have 2 stitches bound off. So kind of keep an eye, make sure that you kind of keep an eye on that hole. And if you need to, before to get used to it, you can put something through here like a pin or a bobby pin or something like that to remind you where you want to make those stitches. So I'm going to dip underneath those 3 stitches and pass the stitch over to bind it off. So that is my first stitch into that hole there under those 3. Okay, so I'm going to again stick my needle under there and purl and knit. So that is what it should look like. You can see here where it's really pulling. You want it to pull because that is what is going to make it look more like crochet. And now we can just go, again, we're going to knit those 2 stitches and pass a stitch over, knit a stitch, pass a stitch over. And here we are to the end. I'm just going to pop this yarn over off because I can see this hole right here. That's where I want to go into. So I'm going to go into that hole and I'm going to bind off that last stitch from my granny cluster here and then purl, knit. So I have my 3 stitches here, and this last one is a knit through the back loop. So that's what we have so far. Okay, so let me turn this over a little bit. This is the front side. So when you later on, when you go to pick up stitches around the triangle, you're not going to be picking up stitches in the stitches in the side here. You're going to be going straight through these holes. So instead of like picking up a strand of yarn right along here, you are going to make this look more crocheted by picking up your stitches into the holes on the side. So that gives you a very different look from what you would usually get in knitting. And then those rows are just repeated all the way up to the top. Um, and then you're going to bind off with a reverse stockinette I-cord. Bind off. So there you go. Alrighty, so let's see. Um, make sure everybody's looking good. If you have any questions or anything, just let me know. I'm I'm really very happy to go through things. So that's what the beginning looks like. So let's take another little look at a pattern here. That brought you up to like the pictures on here. So this is going all the way through here. And then once you're finished with this, you're just going to work rows 5 through 8 over and over. And the rest of this is basically is pretty straightforward. Like there are no charts or anything. It's just transitioning around corners on this, and it's mostly counting. So, so I will admit, like to me, and this sounds really weird, but to me, this kind of pattern where you don't really have a pattern within the stripes, but you're counting and adding a lot of stitches and stuff, to me, it's more difficult than following a chart because in a chart, I can see if I get wrong, if I do something wrong on a motif. But when I'm just knitting like straight stripes or something like that, that is where I really, really get off. So I often, well, actually all the time, because this is because I've finally learned. So I mark like every 10 or 20 stitches on my needles so I can kind of tell at a glance if I've gotten off in the middle or at the end. So I don't know if that would help you, but in something like this, where we get to a point where you have to do more patterning again after stripes, after just sort of working with stripes for a while, I find it particularly helpful because then you're not going to end up with, too many or too few stitches or have it get off in the center or something like that. So, highly recommend just using stitch markers, even if you decide like you're going to mark the center 100 stitches or something like that, you can see them easily counting up on the ends and then in the middle. So that is incredibly helpful. And let's see, any other questions? Let's see. So yes, so Sue was saying, I can imagine once you get the hang of it, you can read the knitting and know what to do. Yes, it's really like once you get the hang of it, it's really easy. I personally think. But it takes a little bit, like it's sort of a paradigm shift because it's not really usually how we think about knitting. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. But yeah, you can totally do it. So, okay. So I'm going to show you the first part of Promises to Keep as well. So my favorite start, and I think this is like one of my test knitters, Vivian. I think it's her influence. She loves Judy's Magic Cast On, and so she got me hooked on it really. And so this one starts with Judy's again. And I love Judy's because it keeps a really nice gauge. I'm just kind of transferring some stitches here. It keeps a really nice gauge. So for this, we're going to start with magic loop. Even though we're not going to go around in a circle, the magic loop makes things easier at the start. So you want a nice needle with a long cable on it of your choice. Yes, so Sue is saying I crochet as well, so the concept of creating the holes and working into the holes makes sense, like old school granny squares. Exactly. Yeah, so for me, it totally makes sense because I learned to crochet before I learned to knit. And then when I was teaching it, I realized if you've never learned to crochet, it's like a completely, it's a total shift. Like there'd be no reason to think of knitting that way. So yeah. And I know a lot of people who will be doing this are not wanting to learn to crochet. So, and that's why they're doing it. So, alrighty. So let's take a look here. This is my pattern. I'm gonna try to get uh, my arm a little bit, my camera arm a little bit more adjusted here so you can see this better. Okay, so this is what it looks like all blocked out. So it's a semicircle. And as always, I have the pattern synopsis on the first page here. And so, hi, Virginia. Getting kittens from the shelter is like you can be like anytime you want for getting kittens from the shelter, but sometime you're going to have to pay the kitten tax. So, so I hope you'll post some pictures in one of my groups so we can all see the kitties. Um, okay, and then on the second page, we have all the abbreviations that are used in the written instructions, and down at the bottom here is a key to the symbols and the wrong side chart right here. So um, most of these charts are presented with right side only. So like this presented with right side only, but some of them, like this one, have the wrong side in there as well. And when there's a wrong side in here and it says WYSIWYG format, it means that you're going to work every single symbol exactly how it appears on your chart. So when you turn it over, you are actually going to work those purl stitches as purl stitches. And these knit one through the back loops, they are actually going to be worked like that. They don't change. So in the back, for those of you who are more used to following this format, I also have what I call what you see is what you get. So this shows the texture that you're going to see on the front of your project. And in this particular format, these symbols do change. So when you see a knit on the wrong side on an even numbered row, it's going to be purled. So it will look like a knit on the right side. But there are only two charts in here that are like that. So, so I am going to, and Virginia, I am very much looking forward to kitty pictures. And if they purr, please soundtrack too. Kitties purring is just like the best thing ever. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how to do this first part right here using Judy's Magic Cast On. So I'm going to cast on 13 stitches, 26 stitches in total, but 13 stitches on either side for this edging here. Okay, so Judy's Magic Cast On is a two-stranded cast on, which means it's kind of like the long tail in that you're going to have to estimate how much yarn you want to use. In this particular case, it's more simple because we're not casting on that many. So let me see. Okay, here we go. I'm just looking at all of the chat messages, and I just keep hitting the wrong thing on my iPad as I'm monitoring. It's one of those days. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is hold my needles side by side like this, and I have my long cable right here on the other side. I'm just going to make sure these are all screwed in here. Okay, So I'm going to hold my yarn in a slingshot configuration. So like this, so my finger and thumb make kind of a Y, and then my yarn is coming down through under my fingers. So now the first thing I'm going to do is get one stitch on my top needle here. I'm going to come over the top and then twist around like this. So if you take a look at that, you can see the thumb yarn goes over the top of the finger yarn. If you are not getting the motion, so you can just add it on there. So the thumb yarn goes over the top of the finger yarn. So that's my first stitch, and now I'm going to alternate getting stitches on my needles. So the big thing that helped me finally get Judy's Magic Cast on was that my finger yarn is always going to go to the bottom, and my thumb yarn is always going to go to the top. And all of these stitches have to have the right leg in front and the left leg in back. So when you think about positioning them on there, it gets easier. So now I'm going to put a finger yarn stitch onto my lower needle, and I'm going to wrap it so that the stitch has the right leg in front and the left leg in back. And now I'm going to slightly twist my hand, and I want to get a stitch on the top needle. So to do that, I have to come in between the two needles so I can get my right leg in front and my left leg in back. And then again on the bottom, I'm going to do that again. So the finger yarn always goes to the bottom needle, thumb yarn always goes to the top, and I'm always going to get my right leg in front and my left leg in back. So when you think about it that way, then the action becomes less of a mystery because you're always just working on coming from below whichever needle and getting your right leg in front and your left leg in back. And so what I want is 13 stitches. And after a while, this becomes more second nature. So let's see how many stitches I had. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so I can see that I had my last one was the bottom needle. So I'm going to take them to the top. 11, 12, 12, 13, 13. So let's make sure 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. So here we go there. Checking up on all, you guys are so awesome. I love seeing you chat away in the comments. This is so cool. Okay, so now that I have 13 on both needles, this is just something I do. I don't know about other people, but I have found that it makes it so much easier to work with this cast on if you just tie a single knot after having cast on the stitches. It's it's not apparent in any way, and it just keeps things from unraveling. So I just tie that little single knot there. It looks kind of like a pearl bump. And if you look at the back of Judy's, you'll see pearl bumps. So that is actually one row. So if I were going to do garter stitch, I would start on this row, but I'm not. I am just going to do stockinette base. So I'm looking at this. I have all of my stitches, 13 across the top, 13 across the bottom. And here is my cable hanging out over here. So I am going to pull this lower needle through, and those stitches are just going to hang out on my cable on the bottom here. And I'm going to work the first row of chart A. So this is starting at the right side of the chart, I am going to knit one through the back loop, knit one through the back loop, yarn over, knit one through the back loop, SSK, and I'm going to purl one, SSK, and then knit one through the back loop, yarn over, knit one through the back loop, yarn over, and then SSK and knit one. Okay. So that is what it looks like when I've gotten to right here. This is where a marker would be placed right here, but I'm not going to place any markers right now. Right in the middle here, there's a yarn over. So that falls between the two needles. So I've just done these stitches. I'm going to do my yarn over. And it doesn't really matter which needle you have your yarn over on, whichever is more comfortable for you. I just put it on that first one that I was using. Okay, so now that that's done, this is the way I was facing before. I'm going to rotate and then pull the needle, the bottom needle out again. So that is these are the stitches that I just worked on the bottom here. And now I'm going to work the second part of row one. So I'm going to knit one, knit two together, yarn over, knit one through the back loop, yarn over, knit one through the back loop, knit two together, purl one, knit two together, knit one, yarn over, and then knit one through the back loop two times. So now if we were working on socks or something like that where we want to work on in the round, I would then go around the top here and continue working around, but I'm not going to do that. What I want to do is actually turn back the other way. So I'm going to turn my work over to the purl side here. And my stitches are going to stay on the same needle where they were. So I don't have to reposition the needles right now, not until I get into the center area here. And now I'm just going to work across the back here. So most of this is just purled until I get to that center yarn over, and then I'm going to be working more stitches into the center yarn over. So I think I told everybody to, I think I did purl, knit, purl, but let me just check to make sure I'm not giving you the wrong, okay, yeah, I was right. Just got a little worried there for a moment. So here I am right in the middle, and you can see the yarn over is over on the other needle. So I'm going to twist this around again. And this time I'm going to reposition the needles and do what I did before again and pull that bottom one out so I can work on the stitches up on the top needle. Okay, so my cable is a little stiff. So if you have other cables that you prefer to use, use your floppiest cable. So here is my big yarn over here, you can see. So I'm going to purl one, knit one, purl one, knit one, And I'm just going to stick my needle back in there to help me purl my last stitch. So I've worked 5 stitches, and that is the very center of chart A. And now I'm just going to purl to the end, 2 stitches before the end, and then knit 1 through the back loop 2 times. So I know that I don't usually use magic loop on socks and gloves and sleeves and stuff like that. But for this, I find it to be really um, helpful so that this little area up top here comes together really seamlessly. So let me check to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, so now I'm ready for row 3. And let me just pull this so you can see what's going on here. So if you take a look at this, this is ready for row 3. So now we have across the top here, this is your edging on the right side of the chart. And here's your edging on the left side of the chart down here. And then here is your center yarn over. Let me grab my sample here so you can see that's this right here. So when you're finished with the shawl, I can put this right over the top. This is where we are right now. So right here, so these stitches are going to go down this side of the edging, and these stitches are going to go down this side of the edging. And then this yarn over right here, that's that yarn over that we did in the center. And so all of the body stitches are going to grow out of that yarn over right there and continue down into the body of the shawl. Okie dokie. So Sue was saying, oh yeah, it's hard. Like if you're used to using this cast on, sometimes it can get really hard to not go around because you're so used to using it on things that like socks, that like toe-up socks. So yeah. So this is what it looks like right up at the top, and the whole reason behind doing Judy's was to get as seamless as possible across the top here. So you can tell, like if you look close, you can tell that this is half a stitch off because you're going from the 2 sides of the cast on, but it is fairly seamless. You really have to look close at it and like really put those magnifying glasses on. Okay, so I'm so glad that you like it. It makes my geeky heart sing that I have found my people who like doing stuff like this. So once we've done that, the shawl is going to work down, and like I usually like to do, I like to increase within the pattern um, of the motifs as we're going down. So you're not going to come, although this is loosely based on pie shawl, you're not going to come to any place where there's an obvious increase, as in, like I'm not gonna, there's no row where, for instance, you double the stitches. It's all gradually increased within the motifs as you knit them down. And you can see here, there's some extra increases in there, a little bit extra increases here and here. So this is the medium size that I've been showing you. And if you're going to knit the tall, this part right in here is a little bit longer. So right in here, a little bit longer than the medium. And that is written into the pattern. So then we're just going to continue down here. I just want to show you this up close because sometimes it's hard to see in a picture what the actual motifs look like. So right in this area is uh, is a series of increases. So it starts with a couple of increases right up here, and as it moves down, right in this area, there are more increases. There are some noops right in here. And I am actually going to do more of, on this pattern, especially because I want to talk about noops, because I think that they're easier to do loose if you're a continental knitter. They're really, it can be really easy to make them tight if you're an English knitter. So I have some tricks to help you with that. And then we're getting down farther into the motif is changing, and there are increases that are hidden in this area as well. And comes down to this little motif here. You can see how that has increased as you get down to the edge. So if you're doing the tall version, again, you're going to have more of these motifs on the bottom. So this is a really super simple bind off, and I beaded the edge of the bind off, and then because I have really flexible, like thin flexible blocking wires, I actually ran my blocking wires through the beads on the edge. So these are the beads hanging down. You don't have to do that, but I just like the way it looked. So, and then this is what the edge looks like. So they're just little leaves. Um, and on the other side there, it's mirrored. So that is what the edge of it looks like. And then let me see about questions. Um, so Sue is saying, if only we could find a way to resolve all those times where a technique throws things off that half stitch. So I actually did do that one time in lace. You can do it, but it's just really fiddly. And then let me see. Yes, Denise was saying that you were saying you don't use circular needles. Yes, it does work really, really well with double points as well, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so, and of course, there are lots of beads too. It's hard to see. There we go. So now you can kind of see, you can see in there are quite a few beads. So all the way through in this area here. So beads and noops both have to, this is one of the ones like where I threw everything in. Beads and noops for the win. So here are the noops. All right. So let me come back over here. So a couple of notes. In here, there are double yarn overs. Every time you come to a double yarn over, you're going to purl one, knit one into it, or when you're on the back side, or knit one, purl one into it. It doesn't matter, just as long as there's a knit and a purl into each one of these. And then I made a note of it. So I notated this a little bit differently this time in the symbols here. So I gave the back side as well so that you didn't have to look at all of the wrong sides and have like a 30-page document. So just take a look when you see those. It does also have instructions for the wrong side. And same with placing beads. So wherever you come to these um, bright pink boxes, you're going to place a bead on the wrong side. And then markers, I always use markers. Um, so I always use markers to mark my edge. And it's not so much because it's really called out in the pattern. For instance, excuse me, you could knit the pattern without having the markers in here, but I think it's just a really good way to delineate this edging from the rest of your body stitches. So in here, there are going to be a couple of places where you have to mess around with a marker. So right here, this is on row 5 of chart A. You're going to need, there's a little extra decrease right here. And then on chart B, you're going to see it up at the top here, a couple of extra decreases. Those actually are meant to be there. And that's just going to help your stitch count out. Okay. And then, of course, I have the written instructions. Lots of people like to check written instructions against, I don't know why I have a blank page there. Lots of people like to check the written instructions against the charts. So I don't, I usually use some type of chart keeper. Sometimes I just lay a ruler across it like this. And then there's Knit Companion. They will have the Knit Companion set up out soon. So let's see if there's anything really crazy in here. I don't think there's anything super crazy. So here's a bead right here. You can kind of see where that is. These are mostly, I think they're pretty straightforward. No insane techniques. This is the area right here where if you're doing the tall, you're going to work that more. So for the medium, you're going to be working that 2 times, and then for the tall, 3 times. And see if I'm missing anybody. Okay, there we go. So, Carb, you were saying that you never thought you could have so many new ways of doing things, and ditto. Like, I can't believe how many different ways there are to do all the things there are, and I love finding new ones. So, so I love it when you all enjoy it too. Oh, so one thing that that I've talked about previously. So here are some increases within the pattern here, and underneath here, these are no stitch markers. So these symbols mean there is literally no stitch there at all. There's nothing to slip. There's nothing at all there. So those are only in there to keep the pattern consistent and make it stack up properly. And you can see these little guys here. This makes a taller yarn over basically. And I'll show you later on as we get to those. I'll also show you later on how to move your markers back and forth over stitch markers if you like, or your stitches back and forth between stitch markers if you use stitch markers. And so Marianne, you asked about which chart to lengthen. It's written into the pattern as well. So you'll see it when you get there, but you grab it. So chart E is one of the places where you're going to lengthen it. So after that, we're just growing. Sometimes it kind of grows between charts. Sometimes you're going to see these little no stitch symbols in here. So chart K, this is only for the size medium. And it shows all right side rows except for this very last row up here, row 28, which is the bind off row. But this is only medium. And then chart L is only for the tall. And you can see this is twice the length of the chart K. And again, up here, 56 is the bind off row. All the rest of this is all right side rows. And you can see there are plenty of beads in here. And you still have all the written instructions. And I think that's about all the excitement for that. And then we have the very last page has the what you see is what you knit charts, where these show just the way that the front texture will look. And it has its own little key to the symbols at the bottom. Okay, so let's transition back here. Oh, and Carb was saying you use Apple's books. Cool. You should also try Knit Companion because the actually even just the free version is robust enough to like really give you it's a great program. So highly recommend. So let's see if I make oh Elizabeth, think yes, I am totally into the details. So I try to make my patterns like a good knitting experience as well. So I want you to be able to get the exact result that I did. So I try to make sure that all of the details in there are like usable to create like exactly what I created. So anyway, so let's see any more questions. Okay, so everybody is it's looking good. And thank you all for joining me. So I will have more lives about these because I didn't really cover everything. And if you take my newsletter, you will see um, when the lives will be. And let me see any other questions. Okay, awesome. Yay. Just checking to make sure everybody's good. So I have some yarn on my side, by the way. I have the yarn for Illuminate. So it's light fingering weight. And these were past Pins and Lace Club designs. So Illuminate. And then over here is a rainy day. And I have a few skeins left of this. It's a set. And I have more skeins left of the Illuminate yarn. And yay. So thank you all for joining me so much. Please like and subscribe and make the algorithm happy. And have a great weekend, everybody. And I will see you soon, I think, probably next week, depending on how fast you guys are going through stuff. And if I see people asking questions about certain areas, or if you send me questions, which please feel free to do, I will cover those. So thanks, everybody, and take good care. Bye bye.